If I had to pick one word, just one word to describe the 2022 Spanish Grand Prix, that would be chaotic. There was chaos in one of the most historic circuits in Formula One, and we all witnessed it live. Crazy things happened. Max Verstappen won with a faulty car. Lewis Hamilton wanted to quit the race. Both Ferrari cars had tyre issues, and fans think that Sergio Perez was robbed of a win. Add the scorching heat in the track and you have a hectic weekend. It's safe to say that it wasn't boring, not at all. So here's what you missed during the 2022 Spanish Grand Prix. As always, Ferrari and Red Bull are in front in the qualifying. This time it wasn't just a two-horse race between Ferrari and Red Bull, because George Russell of Mercedes is behind them but only a bit, while Lewis Hamilton is in P6. With this, fans are given hope that maybe, just maybe, Mercedes finally have fixed their problems since the start of the season. This was only the start of the drama, because days before the Grand Prix, the two Williams race drivers and the Aston Martin cars were eliminated at the start in Q1. Carlos Sainz took P1 with 1 minute 19.892 seconds, but was sadly beaten by his teammate Charles Leclerc on 1 minute 19.891 seconds. Red Bull and Mercedes followed, while Kevin Magnussen jumped up with an impressive 5th on his final lap for Haas. Those who missed the cut in Q1 were world champion Sebastian Vettel and his teammate Lance Stroll, Fernando Alonso, Alex Albon and Nicholas Latifi. We were honestly taken by surprise in Q2. Was Mercedes the top team again this season, or was it just luck? Lewis set the bar of Q2 at 1 minute 19.794 seconds, but was quickly topped by George Russell's 1 minute 19.470 seconds. These two are now starting battle head to head, and we all know Lewis isn't used to this. He's always been the team's top driver for years. But Carlos took P1 ahead of George in his final lap. Max, Chico, Kevin Magnussen were still behind him. Knocked out in Q2 were Lando Norris of McLaren, who overshot his chance, having his fastest time deleted for exceeding track limits at turn 12. Esteban Ocon joined him as well as Yuki, Pierre Gasly and Guanyu Zhou. Finally in Q3, we know who will be pole. Charles spun on his first lap at the final chicane, so we kind of lost hope for him, but were impressed when he leapt to pole on 1 minute 18.750 seconds. Max had no power and was forced to let go of his last attempt after being told to box. The world champion was only P2 and Carlos Sainz was in P3. Now, let's see what happened during the Grand Prix. For this track, teams had to adjust their strategies drastically. Scorching track temperatures forced most teams into a hectic 3-stop strategy, which we don't usually see during races. At a glance, Max Verstappen won the Spanish Grand Prix with a faulty DRS thanks to Sergio Perez's help. Here is how it happened. George Russell tried his best to keep Max and all other drivers behind him. We thought he was going to win too, because we could hear Max cursing throughout the whole race, complaining about his DRS. Apparently it would go on and off. Sometimes it would work, but most of the time it wouldn't. This had already affected during qualifying, and Red Bull driver thought it was unbelievable. This was so bad for him, especially he's after the championship. At the end, Red Bull still got a 1-2 finish. Why? Because of Chico, of course. Sergio Perez led the race, but Red Bull team orders allowed Max into the lead. As always, Chico gave way to Max so he could win the Grand Prix. He's not called the ultimate wingman for no reason at all. Sergio Perez actually questioned the team orders this time. Fans thought it was obvious that he was going to win, but some pointed out that Max would have gone past him because he had newer tyres. Maybe that's the reason why they instructed Chico to make way. Because of that, Red Bull have regained the top spot in the Constructors' Championship. Chico wasn't the only driver disappointed that day. The two Ferraris did not enjoy the weekend at all. Carlos Sainz spun into the travel on the infamous turn 4. Luckily though, he was able to keep going, but dropped from P5 to P11. He still got points by the end of the race, unlike his teammates. For Charles Leclerc, everything was looking up, especially because of Max's problems. He was on the lead, and of course he had the fastest lap too, until his Ferrari lost power. And he ended up in the pit lane, not even finishing the race. Max has now also overtaken Charles's points for the Drivers' Championship. Not so surprisingly, a driver from Mercedes finished on the podium, and it wasn't Lewis Hamilton. George Russell has been shocking us with his results since the start of the season. He hasn't placed below P5 since day one. I bet Mercedes doesn't regret signing that Brit up. It wasn't all bad for Lewis though. Well, at first it was a nightmare, but he still bounced back. In turn 4 again, Kevin Magnussen tried to pass Lewis around the outside of the right-hander, and they ended up colliding at the entry of the turn. By that time, Kevin's Haas was on the gravel, while Lewis suffered a puncture in his Mercedes. Both of them got to rejoin the race at least, but Lewis was really fuming. He even threatened to quit the race. All his anger got him to P5 at the end of the race. As for his teammate, everyone was praising him again. George himself has called this a survival race. It was obvious that he kept pushing the entire race. At some point, Max attempted to slipstream up to the rear of George's car, but was continually hampered by his intermittent DRS working inconsistently between each zone. The battle between the two was intense. Chico got to catch up, and that's when the drama started. He asked Red Bull to move Max Verstappen out of the way to allow him to attack the Mercedes. The team was against it and did not grant his request. Instead, they opted for Max and brought him in for his second stop. His tyres were newer this time, so Chico had no choice but to let him go in front, hence the 1-2. Sadly for Mercedes, both cars suffered a water leak, allowing Carlos Sainz to pass the world champion. They were also warned a bunch of times that they were at risk of retirement because of overheating issues. But both drivers did feel that the team had made a big step forward to solve its porpoising problem because of the updates brought to Barcelona. They feel that they finally have a chance against the other top teams. But they better move fast because they are still far in the Constructors' Championship standings. It seems like the season has just started again. With Mercedes' current results, will they be consistent this time? Esteban Ocon finished at P7 and Lando Norris was behind him. The McLaren driver was actually sick the entire time. He even claimed to have trouble opening his eyes. What a miracle, he still got points. Fernando Alonso took 9th after starting from the back of the grid, and Yuki was at P10, being the last person on the grid to earn points. Expect the unexpected for the rest of the season. You will never know who will bag the trophy. Formula One fans are totally in this for the ride.